What do you expect at the honey farm? Bees. How about these bees right here? Right here at Marshall's. And out back here, do some gardening. And it's a beautiful day here in American Canyon. The bees are having a good time.
That's it. I started crying. I had some beehives, but that was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And that's been 55 years ago, so I just never looked back, and it's driven me all this time.
So you're self-taught?
Yes. Yeah, you know, I started before there was really much of it going around. You had big-time guys, and you had a few hobbyists. And there were a few bee clubs back in those days, but not many, nothing like today. But I was kind of on my own, and it was a slow process. I'm saying, don't do it like I did. It took me 5 years to learn how to keep them alive, another 5 years to make honey. So don't waste your time. Get out and get more educated quicker than I did, for sure.
So what's the process of building hives?
Well, the bees will build. That's their whole thing. You know, they start out in the spring as a swarm. If you're talking about a hive that starts from scratch, there's an incredible story of bees and how they reproduce themselves. We all have to reproduce ourselves, and bees do it by in the spring when conditions are just perfect, like they are around here, say in April. Lots of flowers, lots of nectar, weather's good. They start getting ready to swarm. There's a reason, you know, why they swarm. That's the old queen launching out of that, wherever they're living, and taking maybe half the hive with her. And they already have had scouts out looking for a place to move to. And sometimes it takes them a day or two, but usually they know where they're going to go. They'll settle down because basically the queen hasn't probably did any flying for at least a year or so, so she's got to stretch her wings a little bit. And they'll settle for on a limb or side of a building or mostly in trees for an hour, 2 hours, and then they'll have already known where they're going to move to, and then they'll go move into that hole in the wall or a hole in the tree. And what they've done is that before they exit their hive or where they've been living, they'll have queen cells that have been made that'll hatch out in hours or a day before she leaves, after she leaves, excuse me. And they'll be hatching out and take over the old hive. And the old swarm, the old queen will start a whole new colony somewhere. And that's how bees reproduce themselves. So you start out with, in the spring, in the case of, if you want to start yourself, you can buy a 3-pound, 4-pound package of bees with a queen, and they'll just go with the spring. Build. Get them early enough, say in April. By this time of year, you can be producing a lot of honey. I made hives in April. Small hives, 3 pounds, 4 pounds of bees, 3-4 frames of bees. And I just collected yesterday over in Nevada about 400 pounds from 8 hives.
So how many hives do you have?
Right now I've got a little over 200. I've had up to 500, but I'm on my own right now with the bees, so I can't handle 500. That's too many.
Okay, and they're located all over the Bay Area?
I'm all the way from the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco to Sonoma, Petaluma, North St. Helena, Oakland, and Napa, and Marin. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the actual process of making honey? You got to go out and harvest,
Well, basically, you have enough room in a couple bee boxes that they can make all they need as far as honey goes and making babies and all that. That gives them plenty of room. But talking about swarming, one of the things that stimulates them to swarm is they start running out of room in the spring, and they go, oh, it's time to move. And that's how they've been around millions and years, 40 million years or so. That's how they create this new hive, and old queen flies off. But one of the tricks you do is you get into that hive when it's getting ideas of swarming, take out 3 or 4 frames of brood and bees, and take it away and make another hive and give them a queen, and then give them a lot of room beyond the 2 boxes that they have. And they suddenly go, oh, we've got to just stick around and start making honey. And their whole thing is to have brood down below, and their stores, a little storage for themselves, and then to store it up above. And you have to think about bees, how they lived for millions and millions of years before, maybe 150 years ago, humans started playing with them. They lived in tree trunks. That was it. So you think about a tree trunk, they got a hole in a tree. They come in, they have the brood, they have the babies, they have a little storage, and then up the trunk they start storing their honey. That's their tradition. They've done that for millions of years, and they're still doing it. So the beehives are sort of like recreating the trunk of a tree, really. And there are people who do find old trunks and trees and have hives inside these trunks and trees. I mean, it's like the way they used to do it for a long time.
So what are the issues now with pesticides and government rules?
Well, we live in a situation where there's money to be made, and people look the other way because there's people making a lot of money, and we look the other way because we don't want to see the truth of it. But pesticides are poison, and we're all eating poison, and it kills bees. And it's good, it kills people too. But we're sort of lost control of a lot of things, and living in denial. Who wants to really face some of the truths we got to deal with? And a lot of people don't want us to. But yeah, pesticides are a serious problem. I used to do bees up all the way to St. Helena and beyond, Calistoga and on. But there's so much pesticide with the grapes and stuff that I'm moving back. And now I try to find as wild a places as I can, away from all that. And the bees, like I said, in places where there's none of that going on, they just do great. And boy, it's the struggle to keep them alive, where they're doing a lot of farming and a lot of spraying. Yeah, it's a serious problem. We all need to, I don't like to be waving a flag, but it's something we're going to have to deal with, because even the food we're eating is not, even our government now says that don't eat regular food, eat organic food. And when your own government starts releasing those kind of information, instead of not broadcasting it, but just saying, wait a minute, you better eat organic food, and there's a reason.
So how is the wildfires affecting bees?
Well, the real connection is dry. It's dry. We're not, until last year, we were hurting. About 10 years ago, we started having a serious drought, and going worse and worse and worse. And dry means there's no flowers. I mean, there's nothing for the bees. And believe me, they struggle. We live in a very unique place, especially Napa and Marin and Sonoma. We get the influence from the Bay. It doesn't get as hot as a lot of places. It gets more rain in a lot of places. And so the bees did okay. If you're in the Sacramento Valley, forget it. June is over with. And of course, pesticides are everywhere. So we live in a very unique place for keeping bees. And I kind of lucked on for us. Moved here in 1980. I had no idea the difference it was going to be.
Okay, so explain how, so when you harvest, pull out the frames out of a pipe, and then you bring them back to the store and back to the shop, and then you put them in a centrifuge.
Well, basically, the bees, like I say, have been around millions of years. And when they collect nectar, it's maybe 85% water. So if you try to put water into a little cell, like in the frames, you try to put water in a cell, it's going to drain right back out again, right? I mean, gravity, what are you going to do about it? So they make the cells at an angle. And so what they do is they suck it into their mouths up from the flowers and bring it back, and sometimes they transfer it to other house bees that transfer it up to another bee, and they transfer it up, and then they do another thing. They spit out the honey to their end of their tongue and release it to the air, and it evaporates. They suck it back down, release it back out again, it evaporates down, and they suck it back down, and then the incredible amount of work. I mean, first they got to collect it, and the entire live bee is just a smidgen of what would become honey. So that's just one of the things they do, and then they fan their wings. They create a force of wind through the hive. Some bees fanning their wings out, and some bees fanning their wings in to create a circulation of air through here, and it's warm because bees' bodies are warm, and the hive inside the hive is warm, 90 degrees or so. And that evaporates it too. And then they add things from their own body to this nectar that they're collecting, which is amazing in itself because they create all kinds of elements that we need to survive. And one of the most amazing things is you could survive on just honey. There's no other food in the world you could do that. You name it. There's no other product, food in the world that you could just exist on that. It's loaded with that much stuff. And they do that from the nectar of a tree or a flower, and it's just totally amazing. What they'll do is they'll go from 85% moisture and add a whole bunch of stuff to it and concentrate it down to maybe 15% moisture, and then you have honey.
So when you bring the frames back, then you put them in the centrifuge, which spins out the honey.
Right. So again, you get into the cells at this angle, and so you put the frame in this thing that spins around, and centrifugal force throws it to the side of the container, and it goes down and goes out the spout in the bottom of the tank. And you put it in a bucket or in a jar, or away you go.
Then you store the honey until it's bottled.
Yeah, like today, they're bottling honey right now that I collected yesterday.
Okay, so how many questions you have? Go ahead, Dave.
So, are you saying that when we eat honey, we're eating flower, nectar, and bee spit?
Bee what?
Bee spit?
Absolutely. And you know what? Inside of a hive is more clean. It's better than your house. It's better than a hospital. They keep that place so clean. And they coat the whole thing with propolis. Propolis is a natural antibiotic they get out of tree buds. And if you've got a sore, an infection, a little propolis, it's gone. It's more antiseptic inside of a hive than any place you're going to discover. You know, it's amazing. These people have worked it out, believe me. They figured it out 40 some odd million years ago, and they haven't had to change that much because they got it together.
Okay, any other questions?
How long can you keep a jar of honey?
Forever.
What do you do when it crystallizes?
Nothing wrong with it, but I would not overheat it. You can warm it, keep it in the 90s, because inside of the hive it's in the 90s. Do not get over 100, you ruin it. In fact, you turn it into, I wouldn't eat it. Overheated honey I don't think is healthy for you. That's the newest thing, it's like sugar. Sugar is not good, guys. Stay away from sugar, believe me. Honey is good, but listen, not all honey. Some of these big producers, they play with it. They heat it, they do. Because one of the things that happens with raw honey, it will crystallize. It will get hard. But that's not a terrible thing. You can still dig it out or heat it to 90 degrees or so.
Okay.
But the big time guys don't want you to experience that, so they overheat it and take all the best things out of it. So be careful who you buy honey from, believe me.
Do we have another question? Fred?
Yeah, what's the deal about Manuka honey? Why is that so much expensive?
It's just that it's the taste. It's a very unique honey from, one place in the world, yeah.
And what about how do you replace the hive down in Fairmont?
The most amazing thing about the hive in the Fairmont, you get a picture of it sitting up on top of that hill.
Yeah.
It's on the ground floor, but it's up on a hill. Nothing but huge buildings all the way around it. They not only make the most honey per hive of all my locations, most people consider that honey the best.
Wow.
Yeah,
How do you buy it? For your allergies.
allergies, 10 minutes. You can be from going 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
So buy local honey in your
And
area.
it's got to be harvested during the time that the flowers are the ones that's bothering you.
So get bee honey from the local area that you live in.
Just harvest it during the period that you're having trouble with.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, one, have you ever been stung?
Pardon?
Have you ever been stung by a bee?
Probably about 40,000 times.
So I was at the golf course 10 years ago, and a swarm came by. We didn't see it coming until we were on the green, and we were swarmed by, they were in my sunglasses, in my ears, everywhere, underneath my hat, and I could hear them. And it sounded like a freight train. The noise was so loud. And somebody said, we just disappeared. Somebody off the side said, we just disappeared in this hive that was swarmed. Now, was that dangerous? Because I was thinking, I'm going to get stung a million times, I'm dead. But it took about a minute or two, I guess they moved on. But how dangerous was that? Because I felt like I was going to die.
Basically, they don't sting just for the fun. That's to protect their hive. When they're swarming, they don't have a hive. They go, why should I die? I don't have anything to protect. Now, if you start beating on them or something like that, yeah, but no, like I said, they've been around a long, long, long time. These guys, we wouldn't be here. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that's a fact. Without honeybees, we don't exist.
Now, how many bees are in a swarm usually?
Say half the hive, it could be 20, 30,000 bees, yeah. In a good sized swarm.
That was scary. That was traumatic.
Yeah, sure, especially if you're freaking out and think they're gonna attack you because you've seen these movies.
Yeah, I was thinking of a lady
No,
got
you come up and knock on their hive, you get a different reaction.
Where do you sell your honey locally?
We're in all the Whole Foods and a lot of markets, and then farmers markets. We're in the Red Market, we're in San Francisco Market,
Are you in
Grand
the Vallejo
Lake.
market?
Pardon?
The Vallejo?
No, I work in
Market?
Vallejo. Right now I'm doing Tractor Supply in American Canyon
Well, Ace Hardware.
on Saturday.
Great kid that runs Ace Hardware. Great kid.
Pardon?
Ace Hardware. He sells
Yeah, I don't, that's not me.
In the newsletter, we'll have that information in there.
All right, good.
And it's a farm, by the Little League Field in American Canyon. Anytime, come by.
When you do get stung, what's your method for taking care of the stinger?
I try to get the stinger out, because basically the stinger is only hooked up to a little pouch. It's pumping. If you look real close, it's pumping venom. So the sooner you can get that off, the better you are, because it'll just get there and fill you up.
Without squeezing it.
Pardon?
Without squeezing.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, scrape it, don't punch it off.
How many bees a pound?
Pardon?
You talk about buying bees by the pound. How many?
I would say at least 3 pounds.
But how many bees are in that pound?
Just a good question. It's enough for three frames to make 3 frames, 4 frames on a hive. That's a good question. The exact number of 3 pounds, yeah. I've always just said 3 or 4 pounds. 5 pounds would be better.
The frames are what goes down in the hive, and that's when you take it out.
It has to do with warmth. You know, they got to keep the queen warm so she can lay her eggs, and control. Keep their babies warm. It's a numbers thing.
How long does a bee live?
Well, that's the other thing. Through the winter, they can live 3 or 4 months, but like 40 days this time of year, they just work themselves to death.
So 3
That's
pounds
the
of
workers.
bees, 3
The
pounds
queen
of
will last longer.
bees, 3 pounds of bees is about 10 to 12,000 bees.
Thank you.
What's that?
3 pounds of bees is about 10 to 12 pounds of bees. So 3 pounds of bees is 10,000 to 12,000 bees.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
What do you got, Ron?
What are some of the names of the companies of the honey that you said you shouldn't buy?
I have a phone number if anybody wants to write it down.
Yes.
707?
Wait.
We're old, hang on.
What you shouldn't buy or what you should buy?
Well, this is Phil Hoffman. He's been in business for 50 years. I've known him.
Okay, shoot.
He's just the other side of Backwell. 707-628-6046.
And we'll put that information in the newsletter.
And that's who we should buy from.
Pardon?
That's who we should buy from?
He's the most local guy I know, and I've been buying
Who
from
shouldn't
him
we buy
for
from?
40 years. Huh?
Who shouldn't we buy from? You mentioned a couple of big companies that overheat their...
Well, that's honey. You know, the reality is...
That's what I'm talking about.
You have people who raise bees to pollinate, mostly. Most big time guys raise bees to pollinate. And they don't have any ethics at all because they just want bees, numbers, and they're not concerned about honey. If they make a little honey, I wouldn't eat it, but they do. But they look smaller operations like mine, basically. Yeah, big time operators, sort of the values and morals get lost, I think.
What's the name of a big time operator?
I couldn't tell you. Oh, I could tell you, but I won't.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've read that you have to keep that queen bee from laying eggs in the commercial part of the honey. So when you harvest your honey, you're just harvesting honey, no eggs.
Well, there's ways of doing that if you don't want to deal with having to ship frames around. You have these excluders that honeybees, workers can pass through, but queens bigger. Here's a picture here, you can get a sense of it. Queens are bigger and they can't get through that screen. But as I was saying before, basically they exist in the 2 bottom boxes, and then they start storing honey. You got to remember millions and millions of years in tree trunks. So that's their instincts and the way they do it. And so the honey's up above. Now there is a little mix sometimes, but as you're going through the hive, you see which one has the eggs and the brood, and you move that back, and then you just take the honey. Of course, you want to make sure that you leave enough honey for them, of course. And you learn that by just counting the frames that have honey and the weight. It's more of a weight thing. You just take it along to feel, pick it up and go, oh yeah, they're good. I can take more.
Any other questions?
I was wondering, do you have any trouble with PETA?
Pardon?
PETA, the animal people.
No.
PETA, they don't want you to have fur coats and they don't want you to treat bees bad by taking their honey. Do you have them people coming around?
Oh, but that's a whole other thing,
I just wondered if they cause any trouble.
Well, yeah, I don't do that. See, there are people who take a lot of honey and feed them back sugar water. I don't do that. I make sure they have all the honey, their own honey that they need. And if I have extra honey and they need honey, I'll give them honey. I don't give them sugar water.
I know they just bother a lot of business people. I just wondered about it, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who raises bees in bee trunks. I mean, that's totally not commercial, but he believes that it should be natural and all that. Well, yeah, that's fine. But I sell honey,
Yeah, I got it.
What do you got, Jim?
but I'm organic. Yeah.
In recent years, there's been caution about the so-called colony collapse syndrome, where the hives are collapsing.
Believe me, I've been doing this long enough that
Is that
it's a whole different profession from 55.